The war had finally ended. For years, the human forces had fought against the proud alien empire known as the Zorath. The Zorath were powerful, tall beings with sharp features, silver skin, and glowing eyes. They were feared across the galaxy for their strength and discipline. Yet for all their might, they had underestimated the humans. The humans were not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most advanced in technology. But they had something else: stubborn courage. They adapted, they endured, and they refused to surrender even when the odds were hopeless. That spirit had carried them to victory. Now the Zorath homeworld stood quiet. Human banners waved in the great capital city. Soldiers marched through shining streets that had once been forbidden to all outsiders. And in the center of the grand palace, the alien emperor knelt before the commanders of Earth's fleet. It was not complete defeat. Humans had not come to enslave or destroy. They had come to fight for survival, and now, with survival secured, they demanded peace. The emperor of the Zorath agreed, though his pride was wounded. He had no choice. As part of the peace ceremony, the human soldiers who had fought bravely were each allowed to choose a reward. This was an old tradition among the Zorath. When peace was made after war, the victors were honored with gifts to show respect. Most humans chose treasures, golden artifacts, crates of rare crystals, or pieces of alien technology. Some asked for ships or land, others requested weapons, hoping to study Zorath craft and improve Earth's defenses. But one soldier made a choice that shocked everyone. His name was Captain Elias Kane. He was not the highest-ranking officer, but his bravery in battle had earned him respect from both humans and Zorath alike. He had led charges where others would have retreated, and he had saved many lives. When his turn came, the Emperor himself asked what reward he desired. All eyes turned to Elias. His fellow soldiers expected him to claim a warship or a fortune in gems. But instead he pointed toward the far end of the hall, where a figure stood half hidden in the shadows. "I choose her," Elias said. The hall fell silent. The figure he pointed to was a princess of the Zorath royal family. But unlike her graceful sisters, who stood in jeweled robes and shimmering gowns, this one was different. She was taller than most, with uneven skin that was not the smooth silver of her people, but mottled and dark. Her features were strange, not sharp like the others, but rough, almost as if carved by an unsteady hand. She wore no finery, only a plain robe. She was known as Princess Araka, the hidden daughter of the Emperor. Among her own people, she was considered the ugliest of the royal line. The Zorath valued beauty and perfection, and Araka had neither by their standards. She had been kept away from most ceremonies, a shadow in her family's glory. Many whispered that her presence brought shame, and yet Elias had chosen her. The court erupted in laughter. "Is this a human joke?" One noble sneered. "He asks for what even we would never desire." "Perhaps humans are blind," another muttered. "Or perhaps he has lost his mind." Even some of the human soldiers looked confused. They whispered among themselves, wondering if Elias was mocking the Emperor, or if he had some secret plan. But Elias stood firm. "I choose her," he repeated. His voice was steady, without hesitation. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. He had expected demands for wealth or technology, not this. His daughter, the unwanted princess, was suddenly of value. It made no sense to him. "You would choose Araka?" the Emperor asked slowly, as if testing the soldier's mind. "Yes," Elias said. "That is my reward." The Emperor studied him for a long moment. There was anger in his gaze, but also curiosity. Finally, he gave a sharp nod. "So be it. By the law of victory and peace, she is yours." The laughter died, though whispers still rippled through the hall. The other princesses looked away, some with pity, some with scorn. Princess Araka lowered her head, her eyes unreadable. Elias stepped forward, not with mockery, but with respect. He bowed slightly to her and said, "Come with me. You are safe." For the first time, Araka looked at him directly. Her eyes were not the glowing silver of her people, but a deep shade of violet. In those eyes, Elias saw not ugliness, but pain. Pain from years of being unwanted, unseen, unloved. And he thought to himself, "Perhaps this is why I chose her. Because no one else would." That night, when the soldiers celebrated their victory, Elias sat apart with the princess. The others still mocked him, some even offering to trade treasures if he gave her up. He refused each time. One soldier asked him outright, "Why her? You could have had anything, riches, ships, power." Why throw it away on the one they call cursed? Elias smiled faintly. Because I don't see a curse. I see someone who has been cast aside for no reason. I see someone with strength to endure it. That's worth more to me than gold. The soldier shook his head, not understanding, and walked away. Araka, however, heard every word. For the first time in her life, someone had spoken of her not with shame or pity, but with respect. She turned to Elias. Her voice was quiet, uncertain, but there was a strength beneath it. You do not know what you have chosen. Then show me, Elias said simply. Araka studied him in silence. She had expected mockery, like always. Instead, she found honesty. Perhaps this strange human truly meant what he said. And so, the ugliest princess of the Zorath sat beside the bravest soldier of humanity, two outcasts in their own way, brought together by choice and chance. Neither knew what the future would hold. But both felt in that moment that destiny had begun to move in a way no one could predict. This was the beginning of a story that would shake the galaxy. Because sometimes, the greatest treasures are not gold ships or weapons. Sometimes the greatest treasure is the one everyone else failed to see, and only a human would have chosen her. The days after the peace ceremony were strange for both humans and Zorath. The war was over, but tension still lingered in the air. Human soldiers walked through the alien capital, their boots echoing against marble streets lined with tall spires. The Zorath citizens stared at them with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and resentment. These humans, once considered weak creatures, had defeated the empire that had ruled half the galaxy. But the strangest sight of all was Captain Elias Kane walking beside Princess Araka. Wherever they went, whispers followed. There goes the foolish human with the ugly daughter. Perhaps humans cannot see beauty. Maybe it is some cruel joke. The Zorath nobles sneered when they saw Elias and Araka together. Even some human soldiers avoided him, embarrassed by his choice. But Elias ignored the looks and whispers. He walked proudly, never letting Araka trail behind him. He treated her as an equal, and when he spoke to her, his tone carried no mockery. Araka, however, felt the weight of every glance. She had lived her entire life in the shadows of her sisters, shimmering princesses with flawless beauty, admired by all. She had been hidden away during grand ceremonies, told to remain silent when guests visited, and reminded again and again that she was different, unwanted. Now suddenly she was at the center of attention, not because she was wanted, but because she had been chosen as a joke in the eyes of her people. One evening, after a long day of walking through the city under those piercing stares, Araka spoke at last. Her voice was low, almost bitter. Why did you choose me? She asked Elias. Elias glanced at her, surprised by her directness. Because you deserve to be chosen, Araka's eyes narrowed. Do not play with me, human. You could have had anything, ships, wealth, even one of my sisters who are praised for their beauty. Instead you chose me, the shame of my family. Tell me the truth. Was it to insult my father? Was it to make a mockery of our traditions? Elias stopped walking. They stood in the quiet of a narrow courtyard, the city lights glowing faintly above. He looked at her, and his expression was calm but serious. I didn't choose you to insult anyone, he said. I chose you because no one else would. I saw how they looked at you. I heard their laughter. And I thought, if I don't choose her, who will? You deserve better than to be hidden in the shadows. Araka stared at him, stunned. No one, not her sisters, not her father, not anyone in her empire, had ever said such words to her. For years she had believed she was truly worthless in the eyes of her people. Yet here was this human soldier, a stranger from a faraway world, telling her she deserved respect. She felt a strange warmth stir in her chest, though she tried to push it down. You are either very noble, she said softly, or very foolish. Maybe both, Elias replied with a faint smile. Days turned into weeks. The peace between humans and Zorath was fragile. Some Zorath generals still whispered of revenge, while human commanders warned that the empire might rise again, if not watched carefully. Armies patrolled the borders and spies moved in the shadows. During this uneasy time, Elias spent more and more time with Araka. He discovered something the rest of the galaxy had overlooked. She was not weak. Though she had been cast aside, Araka had not wasted her years in silence. While her sisters enjoyed banquets and dances, She had spent her time in the grand libraries of the palace, reading scrolls and data tablets that most nobles ignored. She knew the history of her people, their myths, their forgotten wars, and the secrets of their science. When Elias asked questions about the Empire, Araka often answered before any advisor could speak. She explained the old battle strategies of her ancestors, the hidden meanings of ancient monuments, and even the weaknesses of Zorath warships that only a scholar would notice. "You know more about your empire than your generals," Elias said one day. Impressed, Araka gave a small, bitter laugh. "Knowledge is all I was allowed. They would not let me stand among my sisters, so I hid in books instead. They did not care what I learned as long as I stayed out of sight." Elias shook his head. "Then they are blind. They cast aside their greatest mind because they couldn't see past the surface." Araka fell silent at those words, but deep inside, she felt something shift. She had always believed her knowledge was useless, that no one cared. Yet here was someone who valued it. One evening, as they walked along the edge of the city's grand river, Araka suddenly stopped. Her eyes turned upward, staring at the stars that shimmered in the dark sky. "Do you know why my people laugh at me, Elias?" she asked. "Because they are fools," he replied simply. She almost smiled, but her tone was serious. "It is more than that. They do not only laugh at how I look. They laugh because I remind them of what they fear." "What do you mean?" Elias asked. Araka hesitated, then lowered her voice. "There are secrets in my family's bloodline, secrets even my father fears. I was born with marks of that ancient blood. That is why they call me cursed. That is why they hide me." Elias studied her carefully. "What kind of secrets?" But Araka shook her head. "Not yet. Perhaps one day you will know, but for now it is enough to understand why they despise me." Elias nodded slowly. He did not press her further. He had learned that trust was not taken, it was earned. Meanwhile, shadows moved across the Empire. A rival alien faction, long oppressed by the Zorath, began to gather strength. They had seen the Empire fall to humans and believed the time was right to strike. Rumors spread of fleets being built in hidden asteroid fields, of armies preparing for rebellion. Elias heard whispers of this from his fellow soldiers, but the human commanders dismissed them as exaggerations. The Empire was weak, they said. The humans had no need to fear rebellion so soon, but Araka knew better. "The Empire has many enemies," she told Elias one night, "and now that my father has been humbled, those enemies will rise. They will come soon, and they will come with fury." Elias frowned. "Then we need to be ready." Araka's violet eyes darkened. "Yes, and when they come, the treasures your soldiers took will not save you. But perhaps," she trailed off as if uncertain whether to speak further. "Perhaps what?" Elias asked. She looked at him, her face unreadable. "Perhaps the secret I carry will matter then. But you must be patient, human soldier. You chose me without knowing who I truly am. One day, you will understand the weight of that choice." That night, Elias lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his quarters. He replayed Araka's words again and again. He had chosen her because he saw worth where others saw none, but now he realized there was more to her than he had ever guessed. She was not only an outcast princess. She was the key to something far greater. And though he could not yet see the full truth, Elias felt certain of one thing. His choice had not been foolish. It had been the beginning of something much larger than either he or Araka could yet imagine. For beyond the fragile peace, danger was rising. And when it came, humanity's fate, and perhaps the fate of the entire galaxy, would rest on the bond between a human soldier and the princess no one wanted. The weeks after the peace treaty grew uneasy. On the surface, there was calm. Human soldiers trained alongside Zorath guards to keep order. Trade began to move again through the starports, and the Empire's rulers tried to show strength. But beneath that surface, rumors of rebellion spread faster than fire. Captain Elias Kane had heard whispers from scouts and traders. They spoke of fleets gathering in the dark beyond the Empire's border systems. They spoke of a faction known as the Velan, old enemies of the Zorath who had long waited for the Empire to stumble. The humans had weakened the Zorath. Now the Velan prepared to strike. Elias told his commanders, but they dismissed the reports. "We fought too long," they said. "We need rest, not new battles." Only Araka, the outcast princess, seemed to take the threat seriously. One night she asked Elias to follow her into the old parts of the palace. Few dared to enter those silent halls where the walls were carved with symbols older than the empire itself. The torches along the walls flickered as they walked. Araka's violet eyes shone faintly in the dim light. "There is something you must see," she told him. They stopped before a great door, sealed with markings that glowed faintly when her hand touched them. With a low hum, the door opened, revealing a chamber filled with ancient tablets, holographic records, and carvings that reached the ceiling. Elias stepped inside, amazed. "What is this place?" "The true heart of my family," Araka said softly. "A place my father hides even from my sisters. He fears what is written here." She moved to a tall slab of stone etched with strange symbols. With practiced hands she traced them, and a hologram flared to life. Images of stars filled the air, showing battles fought thousands of years ago. Alien fleets clashed, planets burned, and strange creatures of light and shadow moved across the skies. "These are the wars of the first bloodline," Araka explained. "Before the Zorath were an empire, before we ruled worlds, we were ruled by something older. Beings who walked between stars without ships. Their power was tied to their blood, and part of that blood runs through me." Elias listened carefully. "You mean, you have their power?" Araka lowered her head. "Yes, or at least the marks of it. That is why my people call me cursed. My skin, my form, it is not like theirs. It shows the trace of the old ones. My father feared me, feared what it meant. So he hid me away. He thought the blood of the ancients would bring ruin if revealed." Elias studied her face. "But maybe it could bring strength instead." Araka looked at him sharply as if his words were dangerous. "Strength, yes, but strength always brings fear. The ancients built weapons that could shatter fleets in moments. One of those weapons still sleeps, hidden deep in the ruins of my people. I know where it lies, though no one else remembers." For a long moment, silence filled the chamber. Elias felt the weight of her words. A hidden weapon, ancient and powerful. If the Valen rebellion was real, such a weapon could change everything. "Why tell me this?" Elias asked at last. Araka's violet eyes softened. "Because you chose me. You did not see me as a curse. You saw me as someone worth standing beside. I do not trust my father, nor my sisters, nor the nobles who whisper in the dark. But I trust you, human soldier. Perhaps that is foolish of me. But it is the truth." Elias nodded slowly. "Then show me where this weapon is. If the Valen are coming, we'll need every chance we can get." The next day, Elias and Araka prepared to leave the capital in secret. Only a small group of loyal human soldiers joined them, along with a single Zorath guard who still respected the princess despite her status. Together they boarded a small transport and left the shining city behind, heading toward the old ruins Araka had spoken of. The journey was long and tense. The stars stretched endlessly outside the windows, and each time the ship jumped through hyperspace, Elias wondered if enemy fleets waited on the other side. But they met no fleets, only silence. At last they reached a barren world on the edge of Zorath space. Its surface was dry and broken, its skies filled with dust storms. No cities stood here, no people. Only ruins, half buried in sand, rose like broken teeth across the desert. "This was once the cradle of my people," Araka said as they stepped onto the cracked ground. "Now it is forgotten." They walked through the ruins, their boots crunching against stone. Strange carvings lined the walls, glowing faintly as Araka passed. It was as if the ruins recognized her. At last they came to a massive doorway, sealed with ancient locks. Araka placed her hand against it, and light spread from her touch. The stone groaned, then split apart, revealing a dark chamber within. Inside was a vast hall filled with machinery so old it seemed part of the rock itself. At the center stood a sphere of crystal, taller than any man, pulsing faintly with light. Elias felt the hairs on his neck rise. "Is this it?" "The weapon?" "Yes," Araka said quietly. "The Star Heart. It was built by the ancients to hold the power of suns themselves. With it, one could destroy entire fleets, or protect them." The human soldiers stared in awe. None of them spoke. Elias stepped closer, his voice steady. "Can it still work?" Araka touched the crystal gently. It pulsed brighter as if answering her. "Yes, but it responds only to the blood of the ancients. Only I can awaken it." Elias turned to her. "Then you must. If the Valen are coming, this may be the only way to stop them." But Araka did not move. Her eyes were troubled. "Do you not see, Elias? If I awaken this weapon, my people will no longer see me as cursed. They will see me as dangerous. They will fear me more than ever. Perhaps even your commanders will fear me. Power always brings fear. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. Maybe. But power also brings hope if it's used to protect, not to rule. And I know you, Araka. You won't let it turn you into something you're not. For a long moment she looked at him, searching for doubt. But she found none. Slowly she nodded. Very well. Then let the Starheart awaken. As she placed both hands on the crystal, light spread through the hall. The walls shook, and the machines around them came alive for the first time in thousands of years. The crystal's glow grew brighter until the entire chamber blazed with radiance. Outside, across the desert, the ground trembled. Storms split apart, and pillars of light shot into the sky, marking the world as alive once more. Far away in the dark reaches of space, the Velan fleets saw those lights, and they knew the weapon had been found. Back in the chamber, Araka collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. Elias caught her before she fell. "Are you all right?" he asked quickly. She nodded weakly. "The Starheart. It is awake, but it is not yet ready. I will need time to learn how to command it, and time is something we may not have." Elias tightened his grip on his weapon. His jaw was set. "Then we'll make time. Whatever comes, we'll hold them off. You just focus on unlocking its power." Araka looked up at him, her violet eyes filled with something new. Hope. "You are a strange human, Elias Kane," she whispered. "You chose me when no one else would, and now perhaps the galaxy will see why." Above them the stars burned quietly, but in the distance fleets moved closer. The Velan were coming, and when they arrived, the fate of both humans and Zorath would rest on a soldier's courage and the power of a princess once called ugly. The distant stars were silent as Captain Elias Kane and Princess Araka prepared their small force for the coming storm. The Starheart's awakening had sent a signal across the galaxy. From hidden spaceports, the Velan fleets began to move. Ships appeared from the darkness, countless and relentless, their weapons gleaming like distant lightning. The humans had warned the Zorath leaders of a possible rebellion, but now it was real, and it was larger than anyone had imagined. Elias and Araka stood at the edge of the ruins, overlooking the vast desert world where the Starheart slept. Small groups of human soldiers and a few loyal Zorath guards gathered around, unsure how to face the incoming fleets. Their weapons were advanced, yes, but they were few against what was coming. Araka's violet eyes scanned the horizon. "They are many," she said quietly. "More than I expected," Elias nodded. "Then we fight smarter, not harder. We can hold them off if we work together." The soldiers looked at him in disbelief. "Against hundreds of ships? We don't even have that many," one muttered. Elias smiled faintly. "Numbers do not always win battles. Strategy and courage do, and we have both." Araka placed her hands on the Starheart. Light flowed from the crystal into her body, illuminating her figure in the dark. The soldiers gasped. Even Elias, who had seen her begin to awaken her powers, felt a chill run down his spine. "You will lead us?" he asked, his voice steady. Araka's eyes glowed brighter. "No, I will protect us. You lead the soldiers, human. I will ensure the enemy does not overwhelm us." The first Velan ships appeared above the atmosphere, black against the stars, cutting through space like jagged shadows. Laser beams flashed, striking the desert below, sending clouds of dust into the air. Human soldiers fired back from the surface, but it was clear their weapons could not reach the ships high above. Elias ran along the sand, barking orders. "Hold your positions. Don't let them break through the defenses. Target the engines first." The Zorath guards followed him reluctantly, but when they saw Araka's light flowing from the Starheart, their fear turned into hope. The crystal's energy radiated outward, forming protective shields that covered the ruins, deflecting incoming blasts. For the first time in weeks, the humans in Zorath felt they might survive. Yet even as the shields held, more ships arrived. The Velan were relentless. For every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. Elias glanced at Araka. She stood atop the chamber's highest platform, her hair lifted by the energy of the Starheart, her body glowing with a brilliant violet light. Her once ugly features seemed transformed, not by the crystal's power, but by the truth of who she really was. Her skin shimmered. Her eyes shone like twin stars, and her presence radiated authority and power that no human or alien had ever felt before. For a moment, Elias forgot to breathe. Even in the heat of battle, he felt awe. The princess the Empire had scorned was no longer the hidden daughter, the outcast. They were witnessing royalty, courage, and strength united in a single being. "You are incredible," Elias whispered. Araka's eyes met his. "Do not be distracted," she said. "We fight or they destroy us all." The battle raged through the night. From her platform, Araka guided streams of energy from the Starheart toward the enemy fleets. One by one, Valan ships were destroyed in brilliant flashes of violet light. Their weapons barely touched the shields, which bent around her like a flowing armor. The soldiers on the ground marveled as the energy not only blocked attacks, but also pushed back enemy squads attempting to land. Elias moved through the battlefield, rallying humans and Zorath alike. He fought beside his soldiers, directing artillery and ground forces with a calm determination that inspired everyone. Hold the line. Trust in her power and trust in each other. Yet even as victory seemed possible, the Valan revealed their secret. From the far edge of the battle, a massive command ship emerged, larger than any vessel Elias had ever seen. Its weapons glowed ominously, capable of destroying planets. The humans and Zorath forces froze. "We cannot face that ship head-on," Elias said grimly. "We need a plan." Araka's eyes glowed with determination. "Then I will draw its attention. Follow my lead." She raised her hands toward the sky, and the Starheart's light flared into a column that stretched beyond the clouds. The massive command ship hesitated, unsure how to approach, and then, as if recognizing her, it fired a beam that was instantly absorbed and reflected by the Starheart, sending the attack back toward the enemy. The fleet's morale broke. Seeing the command ship damaged by a single figure ignited fear in the Valan forces. The smaller ships began to retreat, but the command ship still advanced, ready for one final strike. Elias knew what had to be done. "Now, Araka." "We end this." The princess nodded. She placed both hands on the crystal and closed her eyes. Energy swirled around her brighter than ever until she was enveloped in light. A wave of power exploded outward, creating a protective barrier that expanded across the battlefield. Enemy ships were lifted, disabled, and scattered. The humans and Zorath soldiers charged forward, seizing the advantage. Ground troops pushed into the remaining enemy squads while the Starheart's energy held the fleets at bay. In the chaos, Araka's true form fully revealed itself. No longer the outcast, she shone like a queen of the stars. Her beauty was not just skin deep, it was strength, intelligence, and courage made visible. Those who had laughed at her now fell to their knees in awe. Even Elias's soldiers, who had only known her as the ugly princess, stared in wonder. "Human choice was wise," one Zorath general muttered, watching the display of power. "Perhaps we misjudged what makes a human soldier remarkable." Elias fought through the battlefield, keeping his soldiers alive, but he kept glancing at Araka. She moved with precision, her every action calculated to protect as many lives as possible. And yet, despite the immense power she wielded, she remained calm, not cruel. "I never expected this," Elias whispered. Araka looked back at him, her violet eyes calm, yet fierce. "Neither did I, but we will survive, together." By dawn, the battlefield was quiet. The Valan fleet had been shattered, retreating into the void, their ships broken and scattered. Human and Zorath forces had lost some soldiers, but far fewer than expected thanks to the Starheart and Araka's command. The soldiers gathered around her, some trembling, some cheering, some kneeling. "We owe our lives to you," one human whispered. "To you." And to him, nodding at Elias, Araka turned to Elias, her expression softening. "You saw worth where others did not. You chose me, and now your choice saved countless lives. You did not know the power you were calling forth, but you trusted me anyway. That is a rare thing among humans, and among Zorath." Elias shook his head. "I did not choose power. I chose courage, and I chose someone I knew deserved respect. Everything else, everything you are capable of, is your own." For a long moment, they stood together, watching the last Valan ships disappear into the void. Elias realized then that the Starheart's awakening and the princess's true form were more than just victory in battle. They were proof of something humans had always known. Courage, honor, and seeing worth where others do not could change the course of history. The soldiers whispered among themselves. Only a human could have chosen her, and only a human could have awakened her true power. Araka, no longer hidden, no longer feared, stood tall, and beside her, Elias knew that their partnership would shape not just the Zorath Empire, but the future of the galaxy itself. The battlefield was quiet now, bathed in the first light of dawn. Smoke rose from the sand where the Veylan fleets had fallen, and distant fires glimmered like dying stars. The Starheart, still glowing faintly, hummed softly beneath Araka's hands. Its energy had calmed after the final burst that shattered the enemy command ship. Elias Kane walked through the ruins alongside her. Human soldiers and loyal Zorath guards moved behind them, tending to the wounded and repairing damaged equipment. The silence was different now, not tense, not fearful, but filled with the sense of survival, of victory earned through courage, skill, and trust. Araka looked around at the ruins of her ancient world. Where once there had been fear, shame, and neglect, now there was possibility. She breathed deeply, as if inhaling not only the air but the weight of all she had endured. "You have done more than I ever expected," Elias said quietly. Araka turned to him, her violet eyes glowing faintly. "You gave me the choice to step forward. You gave me respect when no one else did. Without that, none of this would have been possible." Elias shook his head. "No, you did it yourself. I only stood beside you. I only believed in you. That is what humans do. We see what others cannot, and we act. That is why we survive." Araka studied him for a long moment. "Perhaps that is why your people are so remarkable," she said softly. "They have courage, yes, but they also have insight. You see value where others see nothing, and sometimes that is worth more than armies." Elias smiled faintly. "Then perhaps the galaxy will learn that lesson too." Back in the capital, the Zorath Emperor watched the events unfold from a distant monitor. He had been forced to stay in the palace, unable to intervene while his daughter wielded the Starheart's power. He leaned heavily on his staff, his expression a mixture of fear, pride, and awe. The daughter he had called ugly, the one he had hidden away, had saved his empire from destruction. His own pride had kept him from seeing her worth, and now he had no choice but to acknowledge it. She was right all along, he whispered to himself. I failed to see what truly matters. The Zorath Council, who had laughed at Elias's choice weeks ago, now whispered among themselves in stunned silence. Their scorn had been misplaced. The human soldier had seen something they could not, Araka's courage, intelligence, and strength. And by choosing her, he had secured the survival of both humans and Zorath alike. Elias and Araka returned to the palace at last. The citizens lined the streets, watching cautiously. Rumors of the battle had spread, though no one truly understood the scale of what had happened. Some feared the Starheart, others marveled at the power that had protected them. Araka stepped forward, no longer hiding. Her skin shimmered with a healthy glow, her violet eyes bright, her posture confident. She was no longer the hidden daughter, no longer the outcast. They were witnessing a true leader. Elias walked beside her, proud but humble. He had no need for recognition. For him, the choice he had made weeks ago had been simple, to see worth where others had not. And now, the universe had witnessed why. At the palace gates, the Emperor finally approached. His steps were slow, his expression serious. "My daughter," he said, bowing slightly, "I owe you my apology, and my gratitude. You have proven that wisdom, courage, and strength are more important than beauty alone. I was blind. My empire may have survived, but only because of you, and the human who saw what I could not." Araka inclined her head, a faint smile touching her lips. "I acted not for reward, but because it was necessary. And Elias chose to see me, even when no one else did." The Emperor turned his gaze to Elias. "Human, you have my respect. You have chosen well. The galaxy will remember this day because of you." Elias only nodded, modest but firm. "I did what anyone with courage would do. I only followed what my people believe, to see worth, to act honorably, and to protect life wherever it matters." The human soldiers cheered quietly among themselves, while Zorath guards stood in stunned silence. For centuries, the Zorath had judged worth by appearances, by lineage, and by strength alone. But now they had witnessed something different. Humans had survived, triumphed, and saved them not by brute power alone, but by insight, courage, and trust. Among the crowd, some nobles began to whisper in awe. "Perhaps humans are not merely soldiers. Perhaps they are wise beyond what we knew." "Yes," another replied. "Only a human could have seen her value." The lesson was clear, even to those who had opposed Elias's choice. True courage was not in taking what was easy or beautiful. True courage was in seeing potential, acting wisely, and standing for what others overlooked. And humans, Elias Kane above all, had done exactly that. Days passed, and the galaxy slowly began to heal. Trade resumed and the border stabilized. The Valen, defeated and scattered, could no longer threaten the Zorath Empire. Humans and Zorath soldiers alike worked side by side to rebuild what had been damaged. Araka, now recognized fully as heir to the throne, worked tirelessly with Elias to restore peace and fairness. Where she had once been shunned and hidden, she now walked openly among her people, guiding them with intelligence, compassion, and courage. Her beauty, once scorned, was now undeniable, but it was her spirit, not her skin, that inspired respect. The humans who had seen her from the beginning knew this, and the Zorath soon learned it too. Elias often watched her from the sidelines, marveling quietly. He did not choose her for her power or her eventual glory. He had chosen her because he had seen worth where others had not. And now he could see the full result of that choice. A leader who could protect her people. An empire that had been saved, and a galaxy that had learned the value of insight and courage. On a quiet evening, after the sun had set and the stars stretched across the sky, Elias and Araka stood together on a balcony overlooking the capital. "The galaxy has changed," Elias said softly. "Yes," Araka agreed, "and it will continue to change. But perhaps now it will change for the better. Humans have shown us something important, that courage and vision are as valuable as any weapon." Elias nodded. "And humans have learned something too, that seeing worth where others do not can change everything. That is why we survive. That is why we thrive." They stood together in silence, watching the stars. The Starheart's light pulsed faintly in the distance, a reminder of the power they had faced and the bond they had formed. "Do you regret it?" Araka asked suddenly. Elias shook his head. "Never. Choosing you was the easiest decision I ever made. And the most important." Araka's eyes softened. "Then we are both fortunate. You saw me, human. And together we will ensure the galaxy sees what truly matters." And as the wind swept across the balcony, carrying the distant hum of ships and life, Elias realized that this moment, this choice, this partnership, this victory, was the true legacy of humanity. Not power, not beauty, not fear. True legacy came from courage, insight, and the willingness to act where others would not. And in that moment, the human soldier and the once ugly princess knew the galaxy would remember them both.